Okay. Um, so you do diving. How long
Yes,
have you been doing diving?
about a year and a half or 2 years maybe now.
Oh, so you just got started.
Yep, it's about 2 years. I've done about 60 dives so far.
Where at?
A lot of the dives have been on the local. So what happens is, as you're learning to dive, the more familiar you want to become, you end up going to places where you got yourself certified. So it's in a lake. So be
Okay.
it in Austin, you have Travis, I think. In
Right.
Dallas, you have Terrell, I think. And then over here, you have Mammoth Lake, and you also have the Blue Lagoon.
Okay.
So these are the predominant lakes I've done within the state. A lot of times I go diving would be with an instructor or with somebody else to kind of hone up on a skill or kind of getting myself more familiar. Outside of that, I've done vacations purely for diving. I've done two dive trips where one trip was to Cancun,
Okay.
where a group of six of us, we did about 9 dives in about 4 or 5 days. Actually, no, it was more than that because each day we did about 3 dives. So, but we dived for about 5 continuous days. We had a couple of night dives. That was interesting. Cancun was my first experience. It was a very different terrain. You don't have as many fishes as much as you have the flora underneath the water, which is the mountains, the weeds, and the multicolored hues and things like that. My second dive was the best, I think. So far, I need to top that, which I will, I guess, was in Cabo Pulmo, which is diving, which is it's a conservation experiment, and it's being supported by the Mexican government and the university. It was a fishing village that eventually gave up fishing and ended up into how do you pronounce the word? Conservation of wildlife, and they decided to get the aquatic life reinvigorated because they lost a lot of their big fishes. So, and that was one place where they would get huge tunas, they would have huge sharks, and suddenly nothing came. So they figured they were doing something wrong. They gave up fishing, and after about 10 years, they are now a UNESCO heritage, purely for their underwater and for the fauna and flora they have there. The way that works over there is it's a small village, about 50 to 75 kilometers from the city of Cabo. Um, you need a four-wheel drive. It does not have paved roads. They refuse to take assistance from the Mexican government because they don't want them controlling it. They generate their own electricity. They conserve their own water and they generate that also. In this age, living in a place where you don't lock doors, that was one town, I think. It had about 50 or 60 houses. Everyone knows everyone. As tourists, although we went for diving, we would still carry a lot of cash, equipment, and things like that. There were no locks on our doors. We just left our doors open and we went, and everything
Wow.
was there. Nothing got stolen, nothing got misplaced to say that. We misplaced something and we found it. Wherever we left it, it would be there when we went back to pick it up again. So I thought as a community, they were very, very evolved in how they lived and how they adapted. They do not let hikers come in. If they do have any external hikers, they would watch out. But the nice thing about the diving, I should say, there was they had limited people going to different dives. So if they exceeded the number of allowed visitors, they stopped diving in that site. So for a given season or for a week, they would say 90 people were allowed to this one particular dive where sharks visited.
Okay.
And if 90 was done by Tuesday, you could not dive to the site for the remaining of the days till the next Monday because the 90 visitors were kind of done. So they kind of protected and they allowed the underwater life to grow and get cultivated by itself. And it was beautiful. It was like jacks swimming over you. It was like thousands of jacks going around. We kind of landed right through the center. And you would look up and you would see all those fishes going up. It was amazing. Truly amazing to the fact that the same group was organizing another tour to Belize now, and I signed up for it.
That sounds really fun.
So they end up going to these unique places which are not 100% open to tourism, but they are more into conservation of wildlife and conservation of marine life, and they believe very strongly in that. And so that's what got me into scuba diving. I would say was the richness of the underwater life and the fact that you could observe them and you are, for lack of a better word, you could be a meal for a predator out there. It's different from what it is on Earth. I just thought we had a lot to learn in terms of how the fauna under the water survive with each other, it cohabiting, allowing each other to grow. Wish we did that on the ground. So that's
I
enough to
know
talk.
where we're like so much just pushing out nature and making an artificial environment and
Absolutely.
creating Like,
And I thought this fishing village in Cabo Pulmo was a very good example, right? You're talking about a community that gave up their bread and butter. And then they said, you know what, we'll change the way we look at things. And they all are into diving, snorkeling, and they're kind of promoting that entire industry.
it's like ecotourism.
Ecotourism, and that's what they do. And they get so much support from the Mexican Marine Department of theirs, from the colleges that enable them to develop their culture over there and things like that. And I thought that was really nice. I mean, you're talking about giving up a livelihood and adapting yourself to what is there in front of you. So if you look at us today, right, given COVID, the nature has evolved so much. Because we're not stepping that much out, we're letting nature heal itself. Our fauna and flora have grown much stronger than what it was a year back. Our ozone layers have come down than what it was a year back. So I think, there's a lot of learning to go through with all of these things, but it fascinates me. I'm a technology buff. I know I don't want to give up my comforts. Come from a very small town in India where I still don't have electricity. So my parents live in rural India where we don't have electricity for about, let me do it the other way. We have electricity for about 3 hours in the morning to enable us to do
Wow.
our cooking. We have electricity for about 2 hours in the evening or 3 hours again to enable us to cook our dinners and other things. And then we have electricity in the night from 9 o'clock onwards to about 6 in the morning. But we don't have electricity otherwise. A lot of our electrical power is diverted to the cities, to the big people, and to the industries. And it's the common man, we get affected. But I can live in that condition. It's a thatched roof, mud floor. Uh, my son has also grown in that house, so he understands it. But I think living in the West, it's very hard to visualize going back. Like my husband cannot live in that setup. So it's kind of interesting what we see at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. The sun produces so much energy, and only 1/700th billionth of it actually falls on the earth.
And how much of it do we harness?
Even of that, we harness so little of it.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I guess the point is that it's like there's almost an infinite amount of energy compared to what we're actually taking advantage of.
Absolutely. And that's why I said we are wasting so much that is there and we are releasing so much toxic out over there, looking at alternatives. So take Texas. We get so much heat, right? How many solar power things are there out here that can supplement our lifestyle?
Exactly.
We say we have hails, but then we can design solar panels that can withstand the impact of hails. If we can design roofs with different degrees of shingles to withstand hail,
Right.
why not a solar panel? So I
Absolutely.
think somewhere when we are looking at capitalism, we are so narrowed out in our approach that we are really not utilizing nature to its fullest.
But I mean, I think part of the problem is that we're such, we don't really think and decide for ourselves. We think and decide as a group.
Sure.
And so if everybody's doing something, then just by virtue of that, it makes sense. And if nobody's doing something, then just by virtue of that, it doesn't make sense.
So let's take a step back. The housing industry, right? Let's start
Yeah.
with the basic. It's pretty structured, it's pretty standard. There are 5 housing plans in a housing development construction. You have to go with the 5, you can't go with the 6. Why is it the builders are not promoting solar harnessing or anything?
Yeah, exactly.
Simple things, right? That because there's somebody lobbying there against it. Somebody is lobbying for an electrical power usage. Somebody is lobbying for a charcoal usage or coal usage. And I think that's where we have a problem. We're not really picking up. Yes, Raj? We're cutting the cake?
No, not yet.
I'm keeping
Not yet.
Nathan occupied.
Yeah, good.
So you sound like an explorer. Would you consider going into space yourself if it was safe and affordable? If you could see like Earth from orbit?
I don't, and I'll tell you why. Before I venture out of Earth, I want to spend enough time on Earth looking at its corners. And we live in such a materialistic world right now. We have barely stepped away from where we are. Coming from India, moving to the US, I think I have seen quite a bit of the world, be it as tourism or be it as whatever else it is, right? But there's tons in India to see. So for me, venturing into Mars, I would say let me explore Earth first.
Sure, but how about just in orbit? Being able to see the entire Earth.
I am not that caught up with that as yet. I just think, as I said, right? We seem to be such experts in polluting everything around us. We have polluted the earth, we have polluted the surface of the earth, we are polluting the underwater. Do I want to pollute the space too? You're orbiting it, you're going to be in a machine that is going to release toxic gases that are going to revolve in that atmosphere. It's not like it's going to dissipate or go away. So I'm a little different in the way I tend to think. My whole thought process is yes, Earth is one of the 9 planets out over there. We are situated from there. I don't want to move into anything other than Earth. I don't even want to orbit the Earth. I don't want to be the cause of an emission over there, just for the satisfaction of seeing Earth from up above. And that's the way I tend to look at it. So,
Did you know Jeff Bezos has a space company?
yes, I saw the article that he was big onto that research. Yes.
And do you know why he's into space?
No.
He thinks that we should be using space to protect the Earth. Like the energy generation, moving that into space, being able to move like uh, mining and heavy manufacturing and that type of thing, and then just save the Earth for living things, for wildlife and for people. And
You're talking about the same man who's got billions of dollars. I've yet to see him make a dent on the world poverty sector. I've yet to see him pay his taxes and not write off his taxes. And I mean, he's one of the few people who pays minimum taxes because everything else is kind of showed off as something else, right, on the tax treatment. I won't trust everything what Bezos has to say. He's a capitalistic by nature. I'm sorry. I'm really brutal when it comes to not just Bezos for the reason, right? A lot of the people who run big companies, it's good that they all are on charitable causes, but then welfare of mankind happens only when you pay your taxes. I don't find these people paying their taxes. They're writing it off as losses and they're trying to pay the minimum, which puts you, me, and the rest of us bearing the burden of the other citizens around the country. I think that's not right. So I'm not so caught up with Bezos. I'm sorry. I'm brutal when it comes to Bezos' ideas and things. But irrespective, even if it was not Bezos, if it wasn't anyone else, I would very strongly feel that first take a step into saying what can be saved and conserved within Earth before you step out of Earth and try to do something else. We've messed up Earth so much. We blamed it on evolution. We have blamed it on technology. We have called it advancement. Is it truly an advancement at the cost of something else? Now you're trying to say that I want to preserve Earth, so now let me look outside and let me mess up something else. I don't think that's a fair way to look at things, right? It's like a domino thing. You screwed up A, now go screw up B, then go screw up C, kind of a thing. So
well, okay. In what ways have we messed up the Earth?
we have messed up the Earth.
Yes, in what ways?
A lot of ways. I mean, a lot of small things add up to a bigger aspect of things.
Okay.
Plastic.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at a lot of the developing world and how people evolved, there was a reason why we used porcelain plate. Take the medieval eras, right? You had, before even porcelain came into play or aluminium came into play, you had leaves being used as plates, which was nature friendly.
Sure.
You didn't kill a tree, the tree grew, you took a leaf, you ate off of a leaf, you put it back into nature, it went back into the soil, the whole rejuvenation happened, everything was good. We used water for a lot of things. It had
And they
hygiene.
still use leaves for plates in
A lot of places still do. I still grew up. I still go to my native. We still use leaf plates.
Right.
We do not use any other plates. And for us, we kind of put it into one pit that we call like the, what do you call over here? We call that the,
Like compost?
like a compost pit. We put it over there with a lot of our other vegetables, the liquid vegetables, and the washing of vegetables, whatever water we get, we put everything over there. It ferments itself, and when it ferments itself, it becomes a product that we all have buffaloes and cows in our backyard.
Sure.
It ends up drinking that because it's high in nutrients for them. And then there is the other part of the compost that kind of settles down to the bottom that will not melt out. We kind of move it into the compost area where it breaks down eventually and goes back into the earth for our plants and other things to grow. So we still do that. I'm not saying we don't. So how is even my village got impacted by this, right? We go to a temple. Used to be a point in time when we used to be given offerings and leaves. Thanks to the Western world, everything is plastic now.
Everything is plastic.
Plastic doesn't break down at all.
Hmm.
It's a classic example of what we have done to Earth, where we have this toxic sitting there. You melt it, it gives toxic fumes that hurts everyone. You bury it, it bloody doesn't break down into the soil and go anywhere. It's a pile of garbage that is sitting in a corner of the earth that is beyond everything else that we produce. It's just growing in leaps and bounds. It's not even like, it's growing a fraction. It's an exponential growth that we're having. And the West is very common for saying, oh, it's hygiene, so here's a tissue paper, wipe and throw it. What's wrong with using cloth?
Oh, exactly. You can wash it as many times as you want.
So when you talk about us messing up Earth, these are all the small, small things that add up to a bigger picture. So you don't need to put a nuclear bomb somewhere and say you messed up Earth.
Sure.
Again, come to that, nuclear technology. More prone towards destruction. How much of it is into construction? How much of it is used for the welfare of mankind?
Right.
1/10, maybe even much lesser than that. So it's kind of weird, but that's how we seem to be trending. So I'm a very strong believer saying you messed up Earth, keep contained within Earth. Please do not leave Earth and go mess up any other continent or planets out there. Let them survive.
But just sticking with the plastics, so how would you see that problem getting solved?
I'm not a chemist. I don't know if there is a way to break down the chemical composition of a plastic to a basic level that it can dissolve with the ground soil or anything. So I can't answer that. But I think that would be the only way to look at it to see how you want to resolve it. But then the plastic has permeated every aspects of our life. I mean, anything and everything you think is plastic.
You know what I was thinking, if it could be done, if you could make people want to collect plastic and reuse plastic, that could be a good driver for fixing the problem. Imagine having a device in your house that you could take plastic bottles, plastic containers, plastic wrappers, and then it could actually make other plastic things for you. Like if you needed like a little hook for your shower curtain, or if you needed...
But look at the amount of plastics you're consuming and the amount of reuse you will have. America started the whole recycling program. How many people end up putting glass in the glass container? I still pick up a paper to write and I cut my hand because there's glass shards in it that's embedded into the paper that gets manufactured.
Sure.
So how do you put it? It's going to take a lot to get people to think and view things differently.
Right.
Today, America is washing hands with water a lot more than it ever did in the last 40 years.
Yep.
It needed a COVID to hit it, to say do it. It needed a COVID to tell them that why do you really want to drive out if you don't have to drive out?
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm just taking America as an example because if you look at the whole world, there are few countries that are considered developed, but there are still a few countries that live within certain boundaries and restrictions, and a lot of countries that just did what they did, right? And America is the leader in all of that. So it's kind of hard. Getting people to change needs, it's not incentive driven. It has to be calamity driven where they're forced to think about it. So stop manufacturing of plastic bags, stop manufacturing of plastic spoons, stop manufacturing of styrofoam plates. Start from there. Now, you're a capitalistic country. Are you going to really stop an industry because it fringes on your constitutional rights? So you're in that conundrum that keeps going round and round. You're never going to have a solution to it. So that's where I stand. It's going to take a very strong leader. It's going to take a very strong policy to make that change to happen. And I don't think America is ready for that at all.
But what do you think it would take for America to be ready for that?
That's why I said it's going to take a very strong policy. It has to start with zero manufacturing in that sector. Shut it down. Don't manufacture plastics. Eventually it will disappear. We all had shortage of paper towels. How many of us ended up going and buying cloth? I did.
Well, I got talking about the toilet paper. I got 2 Japanese toilets, so I'm solved there. As long as who needs toilet paper?
So that's what. So it's going to take us change. It's going to take time. You're not going to see it in our lifetime. It could probably take 10 years for it to get into effect, but it will. But that's why I said it needs a strong incentive, it needs a strong program. You need to get rid of lobbyists trying to promote the other way around. It's going to take time. Nothing is going to happen instantaneously.
Well, and so coming back to the moon topic.
Mars.
No, not Mars, but the moon. Did you know that NASA plans to put people on the moon in 2024?
Good for it. And I always strongly believe that mankind has destroyed Earth. Now we are going to destroy Moon too.
Is there any way not to destroy the moon?
I don't think you need to spend that many billions of money to go to a moon. What are you achieving by going there? Just a race against the rest of the world, trying
Or
to say you're
learning.
superior? No, there is no learning.
There's
There
no
is so
learning?
much to learn on Earth that we have not learned. You think you're going to learn by going to moon about how gravitation works or how anti-gravity force is going to work or what is there to mine on Earth? That's why I said mankind is selfish. We don't need to do it.
So against.
I'm against it. I'm always against it. I don't know. I mean, my son wants to go to the moon. I have a son who's very different. And I keep telling him, you don't want to waste your money on there. You can feed so many people using that money. But it's my perspective.
But it seems to me that we have the technology today to like feed everybody on the earth. Like, I mean, we could feed everybody.
But are we?
But I mean, what keeps us?
Something for you to take back to the lobbying group and something to take back to the Senate and the Congress and the President. Selfishness. Pure selfishness. Why is it that the middle class, the lower middle class, and the upper middle class bear the brunt of taxes? Where are all these so-called tax benefits that we are given going into? Why aren't the industrialists, why are the big firms that are making huge profits on the American markets, why are they having a headquarters outside of America? And why is their headquarters not in America? And why are their filings not happening 100% in America?
It's a good question.
So you start from there. Believe me, everything will start getting solved because now you'll see billions of money coming back into our coffers, which is not there right now. And we need to keep our nose out of other countries too.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
it's a difficult problem though. Whenever you have like like genocide or one group kind of killing off another group and having the ability to like step in and maybe put an end to
So
that.
let me put it this way, and I have a perspective to that. Every country has a turmoil it goes within itself. No third country has a right to intervene into one country and policy its policies and define what's right and wrong. Point in time. You and I are living in America. We truly are not supposed to be here. We are immigrants over here.
Sure.
It's a Native American land. Where are the Native Americans? How have we treated the Native Americans to come and settle here? So we, as Americans, we have done the first genocide and we are not punished for our acts. What gives us a right to step into another country and tell them that they are having a genocide or they're having a policy that's right or wrong?
Just let it happen.
It's internal countries. It's internal country politics. It's the internal country issue. Let them do it. The more you stop which is why UN came into play, right? Why did we have UN post World War II? We wanted to make sure that no country interfered with any other country. Every country has a right to sovereign itself within its boundaries and borders. Why not let that happen? Why are we interfering in every other country's issues?
That's a good question.
That's what it is. That's basically, we are trying to destabilize the world and thereby stabilize ourselves. And I think that's wrong. So, I'm pretty different in that perspective.
No, it's good.
I don't know if many people believe in that, but I strongly believe we should stick to our boundaries, stick to our borders, stick to our problems within our country.
But how about the feeding the rest of the world and dealing with disease and things like that?
Take
they
care
should
of
just-
problems within your country first. There are so many the number of kids dying of hunger in the US is highest for a fact that it is a developed country. Solve that first.
There's hungry kids dying in the U.S.
Yeah. The biggest rate of death among children is hunger in the US.
Where?
Look at the statistics. I don't know the numbers for sure 100%. But if you look at most of the studies, they say that in children, a lot of children in America are pretty much hungry. food is the biggest issue for a lot of Americans, and kids suffer the brunt of it, which is why the schools have the feed program.
Sure.
So, so I think we need to solve our problems internal, right? We need to make sure that citizens of our country, the children born in this on our so-called sovereign land, are fed properly before we decide to go and feed the kids in Africa.
But I thought obesity was the biggest problem among
That's
childhood.
a different story. See, we're turning into too many things. Obesity is an adult-oriented issue problem. We're talking about world hunger. You started off the question saying that should we not help world hunger? Sure, we should, but first solve it within your country.
Right. It's just I don't know of any kids going hungry in the U.S.
There are quite a few kids going hungry in the U.S., which is why the federal federal government has the Feed a Child program in school available.
Sure.
To essentially take care of that. But if you look at a lot of children, a lot of homes that don't even kids do not even come into school, right? They go through that. You go into any reservation and you look at people in the reservation. There's a lot of starvation in the reservation, which news doesn't even come out. That's why I said go back and think about it. We are basically encroaching into another land. We are living here. We are exhibiting our freedom, but the natives of this country are truly also going through a lot of hardship that we have not elevated. So why would I want to spend my dollars feeding an African child? I get it, it's a child, it's humanity. I'm not running a mission. I'm not on the humanity platform. It's important for me to protect my boundaries, my borders, my people. Get that out of the way first, then go feed the rest of the world.
So, if you look out into the future, say 500 years, what does humanity look like? We still have the same problem? Disasters?
Man eat man.
Man eat man?
In America today, if I didn't have the laws, I would be killed. Just for my skin color, just for the way I look, just for the way I talk.
But we have the laws.
We have the laws. If we did not have the laws,
Do you think the laws are going to go away?
eventually, I think anarchy is keeping in quite a bit right now. There's a lot of hate, there's a lot of dissatisfaction. 500 years from now, it's too far to predict, but I think that humans are going to become more selfish than where we were. We are very different today than where we were 500 years ago.
Sure.
500 years ago, there was still a fabric. Get the fact out that I'm Indian, right? Let's just talk about people in America, right? 500 years ago, America had a lot more family value in its fabric of life.
Well, 500 years ago is when Christopher Columbus came to North America. So this would have
even
only been
before-
the Native
True,
Americans
but
here.
even between them, they had a lot of family values, a lot of family culture. There's a lot of that happening. Even when Christopher Columbus came in and you had the first settlers out over here, they still had the family values. They still had the thing of this is our family, we need to take care of it, and all those things were there. Then came the division of race. Then came the division that the Native Americans were below us, and therefore you could kill them, do what you want to do with them. The same as slave trade, right? The same as people from Africa. If you look back at what prompted that, it was religion.
Okay.
Vatican was the head at that time, and Vatican basically said if you're non-white, you're less than human, which promoted a lot of slavery, which promoted a lot of killing of the native people, not just in America, all over the world. Wherever invaders ended up going in, that's what happened. So when you sit down and look at evolution of mankind, have we done any good with the years that went by?
I mean,
Have we really stepped back and said, let's be nice to each other?
I think today, like you said, we have laws that prevent people from murdering each other. I think, several hundred years ago, that happened regularly, right?
It happened for a cause. There were a lot of fractions to it, right? So I was coming in to invade the land. I killed somebody because I wanted your land. It was a pure selfish act. Even today, we say laws are existing. To some extent, American laws, you can say, is little more abiding than the rest of the world. Rest of the world, if you have a political clout, you have something else, you could walk away free. Doesn't happen in America because there is still some boundary. If you take the law out of it, you think man would treat man kindly?
I mean, the law was created by people to
If you
prevent
removed
that.
law,
Right.
I'm saying, think of it where you remove the law.
hmm
You think then man would treat man kindly? Or
I
man
mean-
would say, I want this, I take it, therefore it is.
I mean, I think they would. I mean, the whole point is about us using our collective power to offset the power of individuals from
If what you say
opposing
is
other
true,
people.
if what you say is true, with the law, why is it that we have so much racism within our country?
But it's less racism than we had 100 years ago.
Related.
I mean, because 100 years ago, I mean, we had
You
deeds.
had slave. See, that's why I said 100 years ago you didn't have the laws, but then the metrics were different. It was slave trade. It was a very different set of rules. If I have to go with what you're saying, that because we have the law, everything is good.
Well, I mean, the law is a tool to make things better.
It's really not making everything better. So, in other words, it's controlling some, it's not fully controlling everything. There's still shades of gray in between.
Sure.
500 years from now, I don't know. I mean, the way I'm looking at it today and a snapshot of the last 3 weeks, you had the unrest in Portland, which was uncalled for. Every time a man of a color gets killed and you dwell deep why, probably the man committed the crime is becoming slimmer. Then the fact that the prejudice that he would have committed the crime becoming higher. I don't see any of that going down as time progresses. It looks like the values are becoming stronger and stronger. If we had all the laws in place, if we were truly good human beings, if we all said we were following our faith, we believe in everything else, we believe in all of that, these things should not happen. These things didn't come to a fore burner 8 years back. We had the Republicans, we had the Democrats, we had the different leaders who came into power. Nothing simmered. Why is it simmering now? Why is it simmering in the last 1 year? So
Well,
if I use this as a metric and say 500 years down the road, I don't see it getting better. Because when I'm looking at a time capsule, I'm seeing things becoming more and more harsher as we progress by.
is it maybe because we're way more aware of it, or we have so much
Selfish.
free time?
We are selfish, we have free time. We do not know how to be constructive. We are looking at it as me, myself, and I. There is no collectiveness in the thought.
And so there's nothing that can change that.
You can change it. I don't know if individuals can change. It's going to take a lot for people to change the perspectives, to change that viewpoint. I'm trying to teach my son and say that save as much money as you can and at some point do well for mankind. Be it give it to an institution, be it a medical, be it a charity, be it somebody, support a child. I'm trying to instill that out. Would he be able to do that? I don't know what his metrics for living is going to be. Am I able to do that? Right now I have a mountain of debt on me, right? I have a house, I have a mortgage, I have a child's tuition, everything. Once everything goes out of the way, I'm hoping I'll be able to do some good to the earth. I don't know if I can. So all of us are struggling to it. We may have intentions, but the possibility of that intention becoming an act by itself is very slim at this point in time. And it could be a function of the life we live. It could be a function of the needs we have. So, honestly speaking, 500 years from now, I feel we'll have more anarchy than where we are. What we think is morally acceptable, what we think is morally right today, might not be the metrics 500 years from now.
Is there any group of people in the world that you're like, this, they're living correctly?
I told you, I don't know what is right, what's wrong. After traveling quite a bit, and I'm not that very well traveled, I never do a backpack traveling, but whatever places I traveled and all, visiting Cabo Pulma, that small village last December, a family of 80 families or 100 families living in a village, not taking help from the government, being self-sustaining, where people know everybody in that house, the doors not being locked, was a very eye-opening refresher for me. So, is it possible? I think they have proved me that yes, it is possible. But they are one of the village I've seen in all my years of travel.
How do we create more villages like that?
It takes a lot of it takes a good mindset. It takes people to come together to do that. And I don't know if that is possible or not possible. It's something you say is a utopic vision, right? It's a utopic vision to have that. It's going to be very hard. I don't know. Can we even have this one lane be crime free and say that we can sleep with our doors and windows open?
It may be hard with this one lane, but uh, it seems that you could create some communities with like-minded people.
You could, but then it takes people of the same mindset. It will take a lot of learning. Um, it will take a lot of discipline. You have to be brutal and draw a boundary and say that this is this community. Nobody outside is allowed inside.
Right.
You have to set those parameters.
You have to
It's
have-
possible. It's going to take work. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy to convince somebody to do something. So it's kind of hard.
But it seems like a step in the right direction. A place that didn't use plastic and who was more in tune with nature and
It is, I said, I come from a village where we use leaves predominantly. Water is our main source. We don't use paper or any of those things. For a village that is, it's about 8 hours by train to reach my village. It's about 600 kilometers from the city of Madras, interior. But I find technology creeping in so much over there too. I go to a small grocery shop that would otherwise pack things on leaves and give it to me, or tell me to get a container from home to take something and go. Gives me things in a plastic bag.
sure. Because people are visiting from abroad and they're expecting it, and it's just a matter of time.
And that's why I said, it's going to take a lot. Now, is it easy in a village to say that you cannot use plastic? Yes, because the way the Indian government works is, although you have a civil law, you have a high court, you have a state court and everything else, the villages are still controlled by their own law and order, which is like a small town judicial board where 4 or 5 people will sit on a panel and
Sure.
try to sort things out and all. So we really don't have police stations in my village.
No police stations?
We have probably one police station for about 20 villages or 30 villages.
Okay.
So each village does not have a police station. You probably have one post office for every 2 villages or something. We are fortunate to have a school in my village which runs from LKG to high school. The few other villages next to it have schools that run only till 10th grade or 8th grade kind of a thing. So the reason I'm saying is it's easy to institute that in a place like that. But again, people are finding it difficult because people from north of India have suddenly identified that, oh my gosh, there is this hub here, we could go there and spread anarchy.
It is not isolated enough from the rest of humanity.
So that becomes a problem. So it's hard. I mean, 500 years from now, I don't know. I mean, somebody will read a history note and say that, oh, they expected anarchy, or oh, they expected people to be more civilized.
Or even see this video and think that. Since I planned for this to be like a time capsule.
The only reason I'm saying that there'll be more anarchy is, look back in history. Start with 0 BC. You had small towns, you had villages, you had kings going from one place to the other. They didn't go to expand culture or anything. They went to get money for their country.
Okay?
It was a pillaging trip. Then came, if you say 0 to be Christianity, a lot of invaders at that time ended up going for spreading of Christianity. Then came the Muslim. A lot of invasion happened on the name of faith. They didn't allow humanity to survive. They destroyed humanity on the way. They plundered, they pillaged, they did everything. They also had law and order. They also had their court systems at play.
Sure.
But nothing worked out. Fast forward from 0 BC to 600 AD when the Muslims came through with the Muslim faith and all, and then moving further along, let's say the 1800s, which we call as the Renaissance era, right? That's when you had the King Henry and the European monarchy and everything else. What did they do? Columbus and everyone. Again, the same invasion, the same philandering. Columbus landed in Mexico, destroyed all the Mayan people there. Spaniards came and literally killed all the Mayans because that's what they thought they should do. Pillaging continued. Did the Spanish courts not have law and order? Were these people exempt from law and order? No. It was there, but they were given the free rein to do what they wanted to do.
Sure.
Fast forward 1900, same rules applied, right? We ended up going into World War One.
Sure.
We had World War Two. We dropped the bombs. We
Sure.
still had laws and order.
Sure.
Did it give us the charter blanc to go and destroy 2 towns and annihilate people the way we annihilated people? We defended it. We stood on the UN courts and we said we were right. And UN said, yes, you are right. Go back and ask the question, was it right for humanity? So the degree of crime, if you take each of these incidents to be a crime, right? Or look at it as a bad dot, the degree has been increasing. It has not gone down. There has never been an era where you can say that, oh, the king came from here to here, did not kill anyone, did not plunder anyone, was very nice and all. Never happened. Pillaging, killing has been part of the history.
Right.
The degree has not gone down. The degree has intensified as time. So what makes us think that 500 years from now, it will be any different? Because if I draw a trend line as a statistician,
Sure.
it's going up. There is no dip. So maybe we'll be in a man-eat-man world 500 years from now. Go back to the Neanderthal way of living, which is, you have to be tough to survive. If not, you get killed.
Sure.
Maybe that's what will happen then. We'll
The law of nature, you're saying. Well, you definitely give me a lot to think about.
I told you, my husband and I, we are very different. He thinks differently too. May not be as different as me, but I tend to be more harsher. But for me, it's more grounded on reality to say that if this is what the past is, the
Sure.
future is not going to be very different. It's going to read from the past. Until and unless man takes a new leaf and says, I'm cloned to being a new human being. It's not going to happen. Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.